we can start. Well, good morning, colleagues. Welcome back and hope you have a very pleasant evening yesterday. And today we will start where we left off yesterday, and we had very rich discussion in both of the breakout rooms, and we heard many views, examples of actionable solutions from your national perspective. And yesterday, my co-chair and I facilitated this discussion on both themes in our respective breakout rooms. First, we will offer a short reflection of what we heard, and then open the floor for your reactions, and then share with you the schedule of today. First, I would like to invite my co-chair, Angela, to share her reflection.
Thank you, Gao. Good morning, and good to see many of you back here again today. I think yesterday was a very intensive day. There was a lot of rich information that was shared through the range of presentations that we heard. I think one of the key things that I took with me from listening to this was the issue of waste is one that really deserves due attention given the projected increase in global waste around the world. We heard really a good framing of what is needed to ensure that policies and frameworks that incentivize cooperation and financing and make solutions viable and scalable, what is needed to ensure that. We had many mentions of the importance of measurement in order to manage and communicate the benefits of the circular economy and to address the waste issue as a resource and ensure economic and development benefits around that. We also heard clearly that many countries already are undertaking circular economy approaches. It was really encouraging to hear the range of actions. And we have solutions and active case studies. And I think for that, we're very grateful for everything that was presented by colleagues in this room. Much of what was spoken about yesterday pointed to the value of knowledge sharing and exchange opportunities, both across regions, within regions, and at the global level. I know I can't do justice to the richness of the conversation. I think there was a lot more that was shared. But what I took from this meeting, from the discussions yesterday, is that addressing waste is not just, and using circular approaches is not just an issue that has relevance for the global climate problem, but is integral to social, economic, and development in all regions of the world. Back to you, Gao.
Thank you, Angela. And I also, according to my observation, have quite similar things. First, I think the waste management, including through the circular economy approach, are widely implemented in countries and regions. However, different countries have different strategy and priorities when implementing the waste management as well as the circular economy approach. That is due to many reasons, which also reflects the national circumstances. However, many also mentioned that the international cooperation, including the technical standards, knowledge sharing, could contribute to the implementation. And also, of course, challenges exist across countries, especially for developing countries, including the lack of financial support, monitoring and data system, institutional capacity, policy alignment, and so on. And of course, circular economy approach provides opportunities not only for greenhouse gas emission reduction, but also for other environmental benefits, economic benefits, green jobs, recognition of workers, including informal workers, and also the role of women and local society plays. I think, as Angela said, this is a non-exclusive summary. We had a lot of very valuable information, and absolutely we will check very carefully about our notes when we prepare for our summary, which we'll provide it to you before the call. Of course, including the rest of this today's discussion. With that, we would like to see if anyone wishes to share their reflections about the discussion of yesterday. The floor is now open. If anyone wishes to share their reflections, please just raise your flag. Or of course, we still have another opportunity after the this morning's breakout groups. We will also have this general report back, and you also have the reflection opportunity to provide your reflections. If you are not. So if you are not ready to share your reflections, we will continue with today's agenda. So we will have a quite busy day ahead of us today. We will begin with a breakout of area of discussion 2, approaches to enable means of implementation for actions and the solutions in the West sector, including through circular economy approach. And similar to the format yesterday, the breakout sessions will be organized in 2 consecutive rounds, with 2 groups convening in parallel during each round. And participants will have the opportunity to select the group they wish to join in each round. And each breakout group will focus on a distinct thematic area, drawing from yesterday's scene setting presentation and panel discussion. And participants will stay in the room they have chosen through the course of the 2 rounds of discussion, and both themes will be discussed in both rooms. And we would only request, as you choose a room, to be mindful about the overall number of the participants in each room that will allow us to manage the time better. And for the first round of the breakout groups discussion today, we will take place from, I think, 9:45 until 11, which is also 17 minutes. And we will have 2 groups. The breakout group in this room will focus on the theme of finance, capacity, and technology. And the breakout room in meeting room 4, not meeting room 5, meeting room 4 will focus on the theme of governance and policy. And we will then have a break. Some parties in their submission and also the informal consultation we hold in Bonn wanted a space for a more interactive discussions. So rather than allocate time during the breakout group sessions, we plan today with an extended coffee break, and for you to give you an opportunity to have a further interactive discussion with others. So today we will propose to have half an hour coffee break, longer than yesterday, and we do hope that you can make use of this time. However, if the interventions in the breakout groups are too long, that will eat the time of your coffee break. So after the extended coffee break, which is scheduled from 11 to 11:30, we will have the second round of breakout discussions. And then in this room, meeting room 2, we will discuss the governance and the policy. And then in meeting room 4, we will discuss finance, capacity, and technology. And similar to yesterday, Angela and I will facilitate the discussion in each room on both themes based on the guiding questions. And rest assured, we will listen carefully and will report back on the discussions at the end of the session. And we also encourage all participants to engage in a conversation and dialogues with one each other, rather than just provide prepared statements. And we also encourage you to respond to views that have been shared and to avoid repeating. The outcome of this work program rests on your active participation, and we are looking forward to focus the exchange of views, information, and ideas with all of you. With that, we will move to the breakout room and of your choice. So who wish to go to meeting room 4, please follow me.
Please unmute yourself. The guiding questions for this session are: what are the best practices and actionable solutions in your country or region for financing models or approaches, technologies and capacities effectively supporting the implementation of emissions reduction in the waste sector and circular economy initiatives? And this includes mechanisms for public finance, blended finance, and efforts to incentivize markets for circular economy. And what specific approaches and strategies have proven successful in scaling up private sector investment in these areas? And from your experience, what role has data, technology, and capacity building efforts played? And lastly, what role can they play in unlocking mitigation action in the waste sector and the circular economy approaches? You should have these questions in the agenda and the notifications that were circulated. The other question that we'll also be discussing is: what are the challenges and barriers in your country or region in mobilizing and scaling public and private finance for technology deployment and capacity building activities in this sector? So to initiate these discussions, we have an icebreaker who will be joining us, who will provide us some brief reflections based on these questions, and this is to really set the tone for our conversation and hopefully ease us into the discussion. And we thank them in advance for their contribution. So I'll pass on the floor now to Mr. Mark Russer, Climate Finance Associate at the NDC Partnership, who will be joining us virtually. Over to you, Max.
Thank you so much. Am I coming through okay?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'd first like to thank the hosts of this event, the Mitigation Work Program co-chairs, organizing team, and UNFCCC for their work in facilitating this important dialogue. My name is Max Russer. I am a Climate Finance Associate with the NDC Partnership. And for those of you in the audience who may not be aware, the NDC Partnership is a global coalition which brings together 250 members, including more than 130 countries, both developed and developing, and more than 110 institutions to deliver on ambitious transformational climate action that helps achieve the Paris Agreement and drive sustainable development. And my work at the partnership focuses on climate projects and programs, intelligence on sources of climate finance, as well as project matchmaking between capital seekers and then capital providers. And a bit more about the partnership. It's a country-driven platform, and so we work through our partners to mobilize support for country NDC and climate-related requests. To date, more than 100 countries have requested support from the partnership members to develop and implement their NDCs, and this includes more than 6,300 active requests for support that have been received by partnership members over the last 8 years. And to tie this into waste, of these total requests, nearly 550 are either focused on or have a component that is related to the waste sector. And these waste-related requests come from 72 of the partnership's developing country members, so a very broad swath requesting waste sector-related support. And they're supported by 70 institutional and development partners. And more than 250 of these waste-related requests are either partially or fully supported. And nearly 180 of these requests have been project-related support requests. So some examples here include support for the development of a biodigester in Cambodia, developing feasibility studies and analysis for a waste-to-energy project in Malawi, and the promotion of sustainable waste management practices in Mozambique. And as more of our country members finalize their NDC 3.0 ahead of COP30, countries are beginning to pivot towards implementation, including the development and implementation of projects in the waste sector and those that help foster circular economies. So a bit more about that. To date, the partnership has received more than 1,200 requests from nearly 80 developing country members for assistance in developing bankable projects and pipelines. And we expect requests related to developing bankable projects, including those in the waste sector, and related to circular economy to increase as more countries continue to finalize their latest NDCs. So with this renewed global focus on implementation coming out of COP30, countries will need to increase their capacity for leading and supporting the development of projects in the waste sector, as well as identify funding and investment for project implementation in an increasingly competitive landscape. The NDC partnership is dedicated to supporting developing country members in their pivot towards implementation, and we're excited to be part of the ongoing mitigation, ambition, and implementation work program discussions here. So I'm excited to hear the group's ideas and discussion on other best practices and actionable solutions to enable and finance emissions reduction in the waste sector and circular economy. So that's it for me. Yeah, thank you so much for your time and consideration, and back over to the hosts.
Thank you very much, Max, for that overview, and a particular thanks for joining us at this very early hour where you are. I will now open the floor for reflections, interventions, examples from the participants in the room as well as those who are virtual. The floor is open. I think several of the interventions yesterday spoke about mobilizing finance and the conditions to ensure that this is made sustainable. Issues around predictability, issues around policy frameworks. Be interesting to hear are there any countries that have some examples of successes in being able to set up financing programs or frameworks to support the circular economy, and what were some of the lessons that you have taken back from that? Australia, you have the floor.
Okay, there we go. Thanks. Happy to break the ice, test the technology. All right, so just I'll give a few examples from Australia's context. We do use a variety of different financial mechanisms to reduce emissions in the waste sector and transition towards a circular economy. So of course there are public investments from the government, co-funded and blended arrangements, and market instruments. I think I was going to give a few specific examples, which is a real growing trend in Australia, which is the integration of circular economy principles into financial frameworks and how this can be used to drive market shifts towards more sustainable practices. So one way that we've had success in doing this in Australia is circular economy principles becoming a key component of ESG assessments, environmental, social and governance assessments. And this focuses on evaluating how companies manage resources, reduce waste and design products for longevity and recyclability. So companies who have strong practices in these things have higher ESG scores, and this can genuinely help to drive consumer behaviours as more and more people want to buy greener products and use less wasteful products. And we are seeing these ESG considerations becoming increasingly more important in investment decisions. Another option is for circular economy to be integrated into disclosure frameworks. So companies are expected to disclose their resource use and waste management efforts. So Australia has climate disclosure requirements to foster transparency and encourage more sustainable business practices, and circular economy is part of that. And then lastly, we've had a growing trend and having some success with sustainability-linked bonds and green bonds that are increasingly targeting circular economy outcomes. Another really key thing, which has been raised by a few different people, is access to timely, useful, sector-wide information about waste, and this is a crucial enabler for circular economy. So the Australian government very much is playing an active role to foster this. So we've established a data platform to support timely and accessible national waste data, and this includes machine-readable data sets and interactive visualizations. And so this is intended to improve the access about waste data for all actors and is available online. Australia also has a circular economy framework, which I spoke about a bit yesterday, which includes targets to use the global resource model developed by the UNEP International Resource Panel, and this shows how resource modelling can guide environmental policy. And lastly, Australia now has annual reporting of circular economy statistics as part of the Measuring What Matters framework. So this integrates sustainability indicators to ensure factors such as resource efficiency and ecological health are considered in national policy and investment decisions. And lastly, of course, we have a role to play in providing funding to international partners to support waste management, reduction and prevention activities. So one example of this is the Pacific Ocean Litter Project, which is working to reduce marine plastic litter in coastal environments of Pacific Island countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Australia, for that. And I think one of the things that really stands out is the importance of how this gets integrated into the decision process and the role that data and information has been playing in that regard. Any more reflections, interventions, questions? EU, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just my answer is the thank the co-chairs and the Secretariat for organizing this very helpful global dialogue again, and I think we had very fruitful discussions yesterday, and I guess we will have them today as well. The EU supports emissions reductions of waste and circular economy initiatives, and it's mainly in its circular economy action plan, including in the Green Deal, and several funding programs. Like there's an innovation fund, Horizon Europe, which is mainly focusing on research, and the LIFE program. This includes the promotion of technologies for circular economy, better waste collection, reuse, eco-design, lifespan extension of, and to reduce waste, etc. We discussed a lot of this yesterday already. This includes, for example, regulations for public procurement directives in order to change perspectives and outweigh lowest price approaches in favor of sustainable approaches. Then there's an EU taxonomy regulation which aims at classifications for sustainable activities in the area. Another important point, and Australia mentioned that as well, is data storage and gathering. For example, in the building sectors, gathering information on material use in buildings, knowing how and where materials were used in buildings is very important to organize a second use of buildings when you break them down. This is done by digital tools, by logbooks, by product passports, sometimes AI-driven, and by life cycle assessments. We also have an aim to de-risk private investments through several measures. That includes a mix of public funding, for example, through the Horizon Europe initiative, and mix this with blended finance instruments, for example, through InvestEU. And as mentioned before, we're aiming for regulatory framework, and we already have a regulatory framework in place to create predictable markets in the Circular Economy Action Plan and in the Waste Framework Directive, for example, to de-risk innovation investments, to de-risk waste reduction, and to incentivize circular economy approaches. Challenges that we face in the EU are finance gaps, and that's why we have the framework for. Then infrastructure lock-ins, especially in the waste sector, and path dependencies that resist integration and circular economy approaches. Lack of standardized materials specifications, fragmented waste systems across the 27 member states and inside the member states sometimes as well, data availability, and of course social behavior patterns that need to be addressed through regulations and through incentives. Yeah, that's more or less an insight. And we also have a set of international approaches for international support in the EU to try to develop synergies and try to potentially see how we can support others in coming up with circular economy plans in the member states in the EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, EU, for that. And it's interesting to see some of the similarities with the approach that is taken in Australia. I now have Colombia, who will be intervening virtually.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I hope you hear me well. From Colombia, we would like to highlight some of our experiences, also mobilizing private capital and ensuring blended finance and regulatory innovations. So in this way, we have had at the level of public and development banks some direct credit lines to local governments, specifically for infrastructure projects, for example, from Findeter, also from Bancoldex, those two are banks, public banks here, which have introduced sustainable credit lines with tenors of up to 7 years, enabling micro and small and medium-sized enterprises to finance circular economy upgrades in eco-design, efficiency, and recycling, mobilizing resources. Also, in parallel, blended finance and capital market solutions have been rolled out, like IDB Invest, which is the IDB private sector institution of the Inter-American Development Bank, support to the issuance of local currency green bonds, also some results-based finance as the carbon markets revenues, for example, for the biogas project at Bogota's Doña Juana landfill. Some other examples are like the tariff revenues that have complemented these kinds of market-based incentives. Also, the performance-based collection tariffs and disposal fees, which were mentioned yesterday by my colleagues and I, and also the incentive for recovery and treatment established in 2022, which have channeled resources from user fees into project promoting source separation, selective collection, composting, energy recovery, and other kind of activities related with our national strategy, national circular economy strategy. And also in terms of our capacity building and institutional support, we would highlight some of the training and knowledge transfer which we have had in our national, regional platforms, fostering interinstitutional and intersectoral collaboration, training programs, expanding understanding of circular economy around our country, and to include eco-design, industrial symbiosis, and resource-efficient production. Also, finally, I would like to highlight programs like Impulsa, Ecos 2.0, and Colombia Productiva, which have co-financed MSME projects to optimize water use, adopt circular technologies, and train employees in sustainable practices. Finally, three enabling factors have been decisive, also as data, technology, and inclusion. Tools such as the SUI utility information system that reports of the superintendents of services regulator provide standardized and transparent data essential to benchmarking and structuring public-private partnerships. And some other that have been already mentioned yesterday as the bottle-to-bottle PET recycling and capacity building and formalization program for waste pickers. Thank you very much, co-chairs.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive overview, and it was really good to hear about the efforts to mobilize private capital, which, as we know, is one of the areas that is not as well developed when it comes to supporting especially the waste management and waste reduction. We now have the Republic of Korea, followed by the UAE. Republic of Korea, you have the floor.
Thank you for the floor. Our intervention would like to focus on technology and capacity. So as all of you know, when implementing solutions to mitigate in the waste sector, it is essential to address the technical challenges involved. So recognizing this challenge, Korea has invested in developing a robust technological infrastructure to support effective waste management and foster circular economy. So it is vital to involve experts, and education and training here should be centered on universities and research institutions. Korea is actively supporting research and development activities related to the deployment and commercialization of technologies which are necessary for effective waste management. In terms of capacity building, a recent example we'd like to give here is what we call specialized graduate program in green convergence technology. So this is a graduate program, and it's a 5-year program covering areas of battery recycling and artificial intelligence circular economy. So we integrate AI with the circular economy approach. Furthermore, the development of a statistical system for the management and tracking of waste is essential because we've been highlighting the importance of data. And this system should facilitate straightforward waste tracking and provides quantitative progress tracking of relevant policies and measures. So it is vital that the necessary statistics are available to monitor progress in reducing greenhouse gases. It is also notable that the Korea has a highly advanced statistical system in place for the monitoring of waste flow, as well as air pollutants and greenhouse gas emissions. It's in Korea, but the OBARA system was initiated in 2002, and it's a comprehensive domestic waste management system, and it facilitates real-time oversight of the entire process. When I say process, it's from the discharge of the industrial waste to its transportation and final disposal. So the system employs a combination of the internet and RFID to ensure the efficient and accurate management of waste. It followed the transition from, it was previously operated manually, and we changed it to we adopted the electronic system. So Korea is well positioned to share insights on its experience with the statistical systems. In this sense, we are currently in the process of establishing the simplified all-borrow system with a view to its utilization in countries with limited IT infrastructure. So we expect this could lead to international cooperation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Korea, for that intervention. I would like to pass now to the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Chair. In the UAE, we see the finance, technology, capacity are the levers to unlock the real mitigation in a waste sector and accelerate the circular economy solutions. For our best practices part, we have founded the public-private partnership anchored in long-term offtake agreements, blended finance, and green sukuk, which is similarly to green bonds, are effective in market projects bankable. For example, our waste-to-energy facility in Sharjah, developed by a company called BIA and our national flagship Masdar joint venture, integrates high recovery recycle with clean power generation, demonstrating revenue stacking and sharing can scale private investment. Equally, extended producers' responsibility schemes and green procurement rules are being to create stable markets for recyclable materials, while construction and demolition waste is being recycled into certified aggregate used in our infrastructure project. Also, we are working on waste oil cooking to produce SAF or sustainable aviation fuel or biofuel for our vehicles and cars utilization. And on the role of technology and data, in UAE, we have the Federal Competitiveness and Statistics Center, which work as the dynamo of the country when it's come to gathering statistic data validation from each entity when it's come to different sectors, including waste. And also we are utilizing in the country AI enabling sorting and satellite image verification, which provide transparency, accuracy for the financiers and regulatory requirements. This ensures that the result based on from this program, the municipality and municipal operator and private sector partners are building the capacity to operate advanced MRFs and also co-processing facilities. When it's come to looking ahead, the UAE is working to extend circular finance frameworks, mandate recycled content in public projects, and develop a national waste data hub aligned with the enhanced transparency framework. Rapid methane abatement from legacy landfills is also a near-term priority. In a nutshell, our experience shows that the finance blending with technology anchored by strong data capacity building is the fastest route to scale up the mitigation in waste sector and circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now have the Netherlands.
Good morning. Can you hear and see me?
We can hear you, and yes, we can see you.
Great. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I will make a brief intervention on behalf of the Netherlands. One of the key obstacles to unlock scale and speed of the circular economy transition is still the lack of awareness and knowledge, especially among finance professionals. A key step forward has been to develop a common language for sustainable finance, the EU taxonomy, as my esteemed colleague already mentioned. It provides investors, companies, and policymakers with a shared framework, reducing greenwashing and uncertainty. Activities that contribute to waste prevention, reuse, repair, recycling, product as a service models, or the use of secondary raw materials can be classified as taxonomy aligned. Another crucial element is perceived and real risk of linear versus circular economy business models. And we had interesting discussions on this yesterday as well. In the Netherlands, between financial institutions, government, and technical expert, a circular risk scorecard instrument has been developed. It's open source, so each and every one of you can find it and use it. And this tool helps decision makers, especially in finance, to get acquainted with the other characteristics of circular finance. And globally, we are very glad with the recent initiative taken by the UNEP Finance Initiative, who've started a dedicated community of practice on circular economy for banks. In short, we see that in this phase of speeding up the circularity transition, we encounter the need to move, maybe temporarily, from a model of competition to deep collaboration among finance, business, and government. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to the Netherlands. Now I have China.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair, and good morning, colleagues. So regarding the financial approaches in China, I would like to share 3 points. The first is China has established the dedicated funds to promote the circular economy development. The Ministry of Finance of China and the National Development and Reform Commission of China created a special fund for key circular economy projects. The NDRC and the People's Bank of China and other agencies issued the notice on the investment and financing policy measures to support the development of circular economy, setting out concrete measures in planning, investment, industry, pricing, credit, debt financing instruments, equity investment funds, the IPOs, and the use of foreign capital. Secondly, China has released the relevant policies to support flagship circular economy projects. We arrange the central financial funds every year to support the construction of key circular economy projects with over 10 billion yuan of financial funds invested, and the guiding funds effectively mobilize the entrepreneurs to build circular economy projects and drive the social investment over 100 billion yuan. Thirdly, China is diversifying the financing channels for the circular economy. So on the one hand, China fully leveraged the guiding role of government planning, investment, industry, and pricing policies, intensifying the support for investment in circular economy. The local NDRC branches prioritize the reduce, reuse, recycle projects of circular economy in their annual investment program. On the other hand, China is expanding the direct financing channels through multiple channels to promote the development of circular economy, actively support the development of circular economy through various debt financing products and models. In terms of the technology and data, after years of experimentation and with the coverage of digital technology and the circular economy, In China, the new models such as the internet plus recycling are emerging rapidly. Statistics shows that China resource recycling industry has grown from roughly 2 trillion RMB into the 2015 to 4 trillion RMB in 2023. Going forward, the circular economy will advance further in digitalization, coordination, and internationalization. Regarding the barriers and challenges, we want to emphasize two main challenges we face. The first is the circular economy faces the problem of high cost and small industry scale, and it has not yet formed the economic of scales. For example, in the steel industry, the cost of scrap steel treatment is very high, especially when combining with the significantly high electricity cost of short process electric steel making. Secondly, in terms of the waste management, there is a high demand for funds for construction of waste-free city, and there is a pressure for government subsidies and support. Finally, we would like to emphasize two more points regarding the finance. Regarding the finance, we need to fully implement the Paris Agreement. Especially, we look forward on seeing developed countries shall provide financial resources to assist developing countries in both the mitigation and adaptation aspect, in continuation of their existing obligations under the convention. Secondly, we wish to address the great importance of having an open and inclusive environment for international cooperation. Nowadays, many countries are facing the challenge of the restrictions on the free trade on green products and the restrictions on the technology collaboration. Unilateral measures would be the great barriers for the green transition. It is undermining the collective efforts towards the global green transformation, and unilateral measures has raised the cost of the global green transition. We do need a supportive and proactive multilateral approach for enlarging the international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China. And now we move on to South Sudan.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I would like to give some best practice and efforts to reduce emission reduction in South Sudan. First of all, is strengthening the national framework such as the NDC, which aims to reduce emissions by 19%, is one of the efforts in reducing emission reduction in South Sudan. And then we have the policy by the president, of which he stated that we need to plant 100 million trees in all the 10 states and 3 administrative areas to support mitigation efforts. And this is purely funded by the government and at some point co-financed by some partners. Another best practice that I would like to share is also South Sudan focuses in low-tech and local appropriate solutions such as waste to resource initiatives, and then some initiatives such as composting, which are done by the communities. And another best practice also in reducing emission is that South Sudan have embarked into promoting awareness and trainings on waste management, emission reduction, and circular economy. And these are conducted in schools, both at primary and secondary level, And also we have embarked into training which is specifically geared towards the media to improve reporting in environmental matters and climate change efforts and issues in the country. We have also conducted extensive awareness program to the communities so that they know their role in managing the environment. And on specific approaches and strategies for scaling up private sector investments, we have engaged in partnerships with private sector and the banks. One of the private sector engagement that is being fruitful in the country is with a company called Ezra. And Ezra has developed a 20 megawatt of solar installation in the country, in the city specifically, with 14 megawatt per hour battery that is to supplement the power from the grid. And on building a waste management or landfill facility, we have also engaged with the African Development Bank, and right now we have a pending project that we are just waiting for disbursement of fund under African Development Bank, and this is a fund of 6 million to construct a sanitary landfill site. So these are some of the strategies that we have used, and this came as a result of partnerships. And on data, waste management data is still an issue, but we have embarked into extensive capacity building in the area of data management, and we have developed the environment information system, which is, we feel that the data or information on waste management is scattered. So we have developed the environment information system, which is a cloud-based system to have a centralized kind of data of which waste management data will be centralized and it will be accessed by everyone. And basically this is to improve research and issues of policy, and also improving the decision making in the country. We have also, under data, we have also developed the MRV system, which is not yet functional, but it's like 90% being developed. And then on capacity building, of course, capacity building is an ongoing activity. So we have a joint capacity building for the development of bankable proposals, and this is an initiative of the region. It's a regional initiative which came up under the IGAT region, and this is basically to come up with bankable proposals for mitigation and adaptation projects. Thank you. This is my submission.
Thank you very much, South Sudan, for the comprehensive overview. I'll now have a representative of the ENGOs online. I think it's an online intervention.
Yes, thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I speak on behalf of the environmental NGO, and we want to highlight a critical gap in the climate finance, where waste methane mitigation remains massively underfunded. Despite its potential to reduce 22 megatons of methane annually by 2030, the second highest among major emitting sectors, current funding is less than 6.1 billion US dollar per year, far below the 20 billion US dollar needed. Alarmingly, 99% of this finance goes to waste to energy incinerators at the bottom of the hierarchy, leaving only 1% for organic waste management. This not only locks country, especially in the global south, into expensive polluting technologies, but also undermines social and environmental benefits and threatens the livelihood of community groups, particularly the informal workers, waste pickers, and frontline communities. Unfortunately, criteria for climate finance is often misaligned. While development banks, framework, recognize Paris-aligned activities such as source separation, composting, and circular economy approaches. Loopholes allow financing for incineration, RDF co-firing, or in other name, a solid recovery fuel or plastic fuel. This misalignment undermines sustainable waste management and diverts funds from solutions that truly reduce emissions, not only at the end of pipe, but also upstream, that also create local jobs. We must also recognize the people at the heart of waste management. Waste pickers, often women and marginalized groups, provide essential services that deliver climate, economic, and social benefits. Yet, they are frequently excluded from decision-making, finance, and protections. Zero-waste systems, by contrast, are inclusive, decentralized, and generate core benefits from job creations, food security, public health, and stronger local economies, such as reuse. We must also recognize that waste is ultimately an essential public service to which finance instruments and mechanisms needs to be contextualized to. This is a cost-driven service that needs to be financed to ensure public environment health and resource efficiency, to ensure we reduce climate impact from our waste management system, not only at the end of pipe, but throughout the value chain. Finally, we cannot ignore operational costs. Currently, financing tends to focus on infrastructure, leaving cities to bear long-term expensive without sustained, accessible funding for operation. Even the best designed systems fail, leading to leakage, pollution, or higher costs in the future. The path is clear. Climate finance must be redirected towards upstream, inclusive, and community-driven solutions that follow the waste hierarchy. By investing in zero waste, composting, decentralized organic waste recovery, food loss and waste prevention, we can achieve immediate methane reduction, deliver a just transition for workers and communities, and create long-term climate, social, and economic benefits. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that statement. We have Brazil.
Good morning, everyone. And since it's the first time I'm taking the floor, I'd like to thank you, co-chair, the Secretariat, as well as all the keynote speakers, both from today and yesterday, for the fantastic job you guys are doing. Brazil's National Circular Economy Plan is the federal government's instrument that has the explicit objective of reimagining economic growth with a focus on sustainability, which of course includes GHG emissions reductions and removals. The document presents 18 macro objectives and 71 milestones for implementing a circular approach in the Brazilian economy within 10 years. Its final version was just approved by the National Forum on Circular Economy on May 8th of this year, and it establishes the necessary guidelines, goals, and coordinated initiatives to consolidate this approach, which is the circular economy approach in our country. The overarching objectives are the improvement of efficiency in the use of natural resources, the creation of green jobs, the reduction of environmental impact in general, including regarding climate change. So the plan details the 5 axes established in Brazil's national strategy on circular economy, which is also fairly recently developed. To address your guiding question on the role of data, technology, capacity, and finance in the promotion of a circular economy and mitigation efforts connected to waste, all of these axes rely on the previously mentioned elements as basic enablers. And 2 of these axes are specifically dedicated to promoting technology, capacity, and finance. So axis 2 of our strategy regards foster innovation, culture, education, and skills development to reduce, reuse, and promote a circular redesign of production. This axis aims at encouraging the development of products, byproducts, and business models designed to eliminate waste and GHG emissions from these sources. It also promotes innovation in the production of food and renewable materials as well as the regeneration of natural systems. One of its macro objectives is developing training and awareness programs to create capacity aligned with the principles of circular economy, from process redesign to more conscious consumption and disposal habits and practices. This access is coordinated by our Ministry of Science and Technology and is supported by a number of partners, including international foundations. Access 4 proposes financial instruments to support the circular approach economy in Brazil. Of course, its main goals are to establish an evaluation system and define criteria for prioritizing projects for financing. Also to provide parameters, standards, and technical support to banks and financial institutions so they can identify circular economy projects and recognize their environmental and social benefits, as well as to help them defining their financing priorities. This access is led by our Ministry of Finance, but it also counts with our National Development Bank, the BNDES, and is also supported by many institutions, including international ones. So Brazil has been looking to provide an adequate institutional environment to overcome the identified barriers in the provision of means of implementation in general, as well as to diversifying its sources. International cooperation remains, in our view, one of the main potential sources for these elements, and is crucial in addressing one of the perceived barriers, which is the continuation in time and scaling up of the successful initiatives. An enabling international trade environment is certainly helpful, as well as targeted initiatives from direct donations to cooperation through carbon markets. On this last channel, Brazil sees our Article 6 as a potential enabler in its role of providing the benchmark for high-integrity mitigation initiatives, and hopes to see the scaling up of initiatives in the waste sector, particularly the ones that do not necessarily involve the transfer of ITMOs, but instead allow that the host country counts the corresponding mitigation outcomes towards its own NDC, thereby incentivizing higher ambition. Brazil is looking forward to engaging in such partnerships and help shaping this form of international cooperation, as well as others throughout. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brazil, for that intervention. And now I have Saudi Arabia. I think it's an online intervention. Saudi, you have the floor.
You were on mute. I couldn't hear you. Are you inviting me, Nasser? So there.
Hi, this is Soumitra Saxena from Saudi Arabia. I am speaking on behalf of my team here, and I'm going to highlight some of the initiatives and actions that Saudi Arabia is taking in waste management and circular economy. So one of the key aspects of our approach is the landfill reduction. And by 2040, Saudi Arabia aims for 90% landfill reduction or diversion, and that's about 1.2 billion tons of waste handled away from dumps. And it opens up roughly Saudi Arabian Riyal $420 billion, so 420 billion Saudi Riyals, roughly about $110 billion in public sector opportunity. We need in the order of 850 treatment facilities nationwide to get there. On the stream side, municipal solid waste moves from 25% in 2030 to 94% in 2040. And construction and demolition waste goes to 98% and end-of-life tires up to 99%. The big mass movers in our diversion met. How do we get there? We built the backbone, source segregation, transfer stations, and MRFs, material recovery facilities, treat organics with anaerobic digestion and composting, recycle construction and demolition debris into specific aggregates. For plastics, we want to go to mechanical recycling first, and then use advanced and chemical recycling only for the hardest stuff, and only when LCA says it's a real win. Handle hazardous high-strength organics with compliant treatment and selectively deploy new technologies to destroy contaminants and hazardous waste streams. And to make it bankable and real, we plan to use green public procurement to buy recycled content, expand EPR, and de-risk projects with guarantees, green sukuk, and PPPs. And that's the essence of it, 90% diversion by 2040, 1.2 billion tons treated, about $110 billion of opportunity, 850 facilities with practical mix of collection, sorting, proven recycling, and targeted new tech where it truly adds value. And since I'm a researcher from KAUST, I would like to highlight some activities from KAUST. KAUST is a major university in Middle East focused on research and development and demonstration. We are currently working and testing and feasibility of several technologies which are highly advanced and which can treat the municipal solid waste completely without worrying about the ash content that is released. And also we are looking into some combination of technologies which take care of the broad spectrum of the contaminant issues, problems. Since we all know these waste is not, for example, plastics are not polymers alone. They come with a lot of additives, especially in the packaging side. So we can't just burn them or gasify them or sterilize them. It needs a lot of effort to tackle those. So one of the point I want to make here is there are several advanced countries which already have these technologies, and it would be important for these countries to share the know-how with all other countries that lack it currently, and also the finance is needed to do demonstrations, pilot scale, and take it forward. With that, I'm done. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Saudi. Grenada.
Thank you very much. Good day, colleagues, wherever we may be. So relative to this topic, the challenge for SIDS stem from limited capacity and capabilities in terms of personnel, or what I would like to call warm bodies, who are already having responsibilities for 1 million plus one things. The reality is Grenada just don't have the required capacity, but we are expected to comply and participate in these spaces, which emerges as mechanisms to address these global issues. Oftentimes, we require financing to undertake assessing some of so accessing the financing requires processes to be followed, be it in assessments, evidence-based submissions, completing readiness proposals, all for which there isn't necessarily capacity to complete. To the extent that there can be template-like or geographically relevant plug-and-play options, example, Caribbean SIDS draft, harmonized legislation, policy, or whatever best practices frameworks that can be on offer as a go-to tool, which can ultimately be used as guidance, which could cut out much of the heavy lifting associated with the enabling environment processes. That could help us. That could be useful in aiding to ramp up implementation in the waste sector relative to emissions reductions. Madam Co-Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much, Grenada. And now I have Nasser Order from Saudi.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I just want to add to what my colleague said earlier. In Saudi Arabia, significant work is underway. I think it has been mentioned earlier, perhaps, that methane recovery from landfills is an important aspect. So currently, engineered landfill projects are being designed. This creates jobs, but also removes greenhouse gas emissions. Also, an additional aspect is that the national gas inventory has been developed in Saudi Arabia, tracking methane emissions, not only in landfills, but also in oil and gas industry. Awareness campaigns are underway, and regulation at the municipality level is also being developed to encourage community engagement and efforts to reduce food waste mainly. Stakeholder engagement is a very big topic also. So there are a lot of developments, but obviously realizing that society needs to adjust and that no size fits all, and obviously these need to be adapted to national circumstances. But also I would like to highlight that Saudi Vision 2030 encourages diversion of municipal solid waste from landfills, 82% by 2035, and 3 gigawatt of electricity generation from waste to energy plants. In addition to that, also I would like to add significant work is undertaken on feasibility studies for waste and waste to energy. For example, at CAPSA, we have undertaken studies on biogas feasibility. We estimated that levelized cost of electricity generation from biogas are in the range of $54 to $116 per megawatt hour, and biogas-based electricity could supply up to 27 terawatt hour per year. This is like 7% of the current electricity demand in Saudi Arabia. And this could offset approximately 16.4 million tons of CO2 equivalents per year in Saudi Arabia. Similar efforts are undertaken also on incineration plants. There are several plans for example, the Riyadh waste-to-energy plant, which will attract $2 billion investment. Also the Jeddah waste-to-energy plant, municipal solid waste electricity, and also the NEOM waste-to-energy plant. So there are several plans underway, but in the early stages of the feasibility study. From the point of financing, I mean, Vision 2030 encourages public-private partnerships, which aim to mobilize private capital for infrastructure such as waste-to-energy plants and material recovery facilities. Also, some innovative instruments have been introduced, and the new financing mechanisms are emerging. For example, green sukuk to attract sustainable investors, and also carbon crediting under the greenhouse gas crediting and offsetting mechanism, GCOM, which was launched in 2023. With this positions waste to energy and landfill diversion projects to generate tradable carbon assets in the future. There's a lot of work still to be done and some challenges, including, for example, scaling private investment, technology localization, addressing the technology localization gap, limited financial innovation, and also capacity building. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And our last intervention is Egypt.
Thank you so much and good morning. I just would like to emphasize on 2 points regarding finance. We just need to fully implement the Paris Agreement, especially developed country parties shall provide financial resources to assist developing country parties with respect to both mitigation and adaptation in continuation of their existing obligation under the Convention. Second, we wish to address the great importance of having an open and inclusive environment for international cooperation, because nowadays many countries are facing the challenge of restriction on the free trade on green products and the restriction on technology collaboration as well. Unilateral measures would be the great barrier for the global green transformation, It is undermining the collective efforts towards global green transformation. And unilateral measures as well has raised the cost of the global green transition. We do need a supportive and proactive multilateral approach for enlarging international cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Egypt. We've reached the end of our speaker list for this particular. Oh, Canada. Oh, sorry, Canada. You're behind the camera, guys. I did not see you. You may have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Sorry, I was behind the camera there, so you weren't able to see. Yeah, just jumping in on this. I think, of course, I think we've heard multiple diverging and available opportunities for different countries at the national level, and also jurisdictional differences across across countries as well. So, of course, a no one-size-fits-all approach is probably a prudent way to tackle the issue of emissions in the waste sector. Even in Canada, most of these decisions are made at different provincial, territorial, municipality levels. So we have different variations of policy choices that have been taken. So I'll speak to a few of the best practices of financing methods in Canada that have gone to reducing the GHG emissions in the waste sector, and these include public-private partnerships, P3s, municipal funding, provincial territorial funding, and private funding. So generally, the financing of solid waste infrastructure in Canada is accomplished through tipping fees, utility or property taxes, pay-as-you-throw fees for excess quantities, and funding through capital funding programs driven through clean growth and climate action plans in Canada. And over the last 10 years, the financial model that has become common is a municipally owned facility that is designed, operated, and maintained by a private organization. So typically, private organic processing facilities are constructed in partnership with the local government, either formally or through the guarantee of long-term feedstock. And if a project has a guarantee of long-term feedstock, then obtaining private financing is less challenging. So I'll stop there. I did have a question. I know yesterday we had the option to contribute to a mural board, so I'm wondering if the QR code can be put up so we can feed into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada. We will close this session now, and you have half an hour for a coffee break. And as Gao said in the earlier session, an opportunity to have your interactive conversations with each other, reflecting on things that you have heard. And we will be resuming at 11:20 a.m. Thank you. So the session's now closed. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so welcome back. I hope you had productive conversations during your coffee break. We're going to start the second round of breakout discussions. Now, in the first round of discussion, we spoke about one of the themes under this area of discussion. Now we have the opportunity to discuss the other theme, which is governance and policy. So let's move to the guiding questions. The guiding question for this group is, what are the best practices and actionable solutions in your country for national policy and multi-level governance approaches to enable more effective mitigation action in the waste sector and stronger circular economy, including through successful examples of the engagement of regional and local governance actors and other stakeholders? What are the challenges and barriers in your country or region to developing and implementing coherent and effective policy and governance frameworks for the waste sector and circular economy approaches? So to kick us off and help us start responding to this, we have an icebreaker with us. This is Ms. Amira Halabi. She's a climate justice specialist and Africa liaison consultant working with women in informal employment. So over to you, Amira.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for having me here. When I received an email about doing an icebreaker, honestly, I thought that I will have to work with the audience to do some movements and breaking the ice, like actually. But I discovered that I have to present and icebreak the topic itself. So since I'm working with an organization called Women in Informal Employment, Globalizing and Organizing, by default, the topic that I'm more comfortable to talk about and break the ice with is the topic of workers in informal setting, including waste pickers and cooperative working in recycling. When it comes to governance and so on and so forth, I did this icebreaker before, and then from the room interaction, what I would want to pitch, because most of the people here are parties, right? There are local government, there are national government, there are people and decision maker. So if I am a decision maker working on waste management, circular economy, and looking into acing up my mitigation kind of commitment, by default, I would be thinking about waste pickers and workers in informal economy. Why is that? So far in countries like Global South, the country where I come from, like Sierra Leone, most of the recycling work that's happening, it's happening through this sector. The only established recycling value chain in a way or another in our country is through the informal recycling. As well, to bring it more globally, what we're seeing is that waste pickers and informal recycling is not only positioned in the Global South. So we're seeing there's emerging waste pickers group in Europe and the USA and Canada. We have waste picker group in France called Amelior, waste picker group in Italy, Rete Uno, waste picker group in the USA, Sure We Can. So, and this is happening because there is a changes in the social metabolism of waste and waste management all around. There is a differentiation and there is a different trends in waste composition, like we have increasing textile waste, for example, comparing to a couple of years ago. We have changes in the consumption. Coming back to the Global South and why the integration of waste picker is important, there is integration of workers in informal economy is important in the discourse of circular economy. One is that there are 34 million person working in this sector. And in WIGO, we had something called the greenhouse gas calculator, and it was an effort that we tried to do to understand the mitigation, how much waste pickers are helping and are contributing into the reduction of greenhouse gas emission. For example, in Brazil, in a city called Belo Horizonte, the study showed that in a cooperative, a small cooperative, they were able to mitigate 6 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions through their work. So if you want to like downsize a little bit this and average it, this number and average it, what we see is that 950 kg of CO2 is avoided per every ton of plastic, of recycled material, not only plastic, plastic metals, cardboard, and etc. So this is therefore just like, it's a quick win from a governance, a quick win from a policy point of view. But unfortunately, despite all those contributions that are happening from the sector is still, and the workers in the sector, especially women, are still facing kind of climate change impact. Their productivity is reduced whenever there is a kind of a high level of heat wave, flooding, and etc. But it's not that gloomy all the time, and it's not always, it's not that bad, because what we've seen is that there's countries, national government and local government and municipalities created some effort into the integration of waste picker into their waste management system, into their circular economy kind of initiative, especially when it comes to recycling. So the examples that I would want to share are from three different kind of countries. An example from South Africa, where the Department of Environment and Forestry has developed the national guidelines for waste pickers integration. And through these guidelines, yesterday, our colleague from South Africa was mentioning is different. Each country has a very context-specific kind of reality. So what this guidelines did is gave the local government the ability to integrate the waste pickers in their waste management systems according to the reality of each municipality. And it led into kind of responding to one of the big challenges that local governments have when it comes to waste pickers integration, is about how we can access them. We don't know them, where they are, and etc. So with the guidelines, it created the roadmap and the action for registration of waste pickers association and waste pickers and informal workers in a system that can be monitored, where data can be collected, and where kind of the contribution can be actually measured. The other example, and an example that is becoming a worldwide example, is an example from India, a city called Pune. A waste picker association that is dominated by women, 3,000 women from Swash Association, were able to get contract from the municipality of Pune to service 850,000 households for waste collection. With this model, what happened is that the municipality was able to reach out to households that are in quote-unquote hard-to-reach areas and informal settlements and etc. The association itself receive a service fee for their servicing of household directly from the directly from household, but as well they receive a kind of infrastructure support from the municipality itself. With this model, what was seen is that there is an increase, since we're talking about governance, financial sustainability is always a question. So there is a kind of the system proved to be financially sustainable because the service is provided in a kind of adequate way with a kind of a low kind of cost, and as well as inclusive because it takes into consideration the woman, so as well the gender aspect and so on and so forth, and the broad kind of informal sector aspect of it. And it leaves the autonomy of the waste pickers and the informal recyclers that exist there. So they are organized through the system, but still the autonomy is safe and they are recognized. The third example is the example of Colombia, which I shared this morning. So in Colombia, what's happening is that waste pickers receive a service fee for each ton of each ton of material that they recover. And this happened through a kind of organizing and mobilizing a bottom-up approach where waste pickers organize and went to court to get access to this right, but as well it led into the result of integration. I presented this case this morning, and then there was an intervention from a colleague from Colombia. She told me that I have to mention as well it's a good integration system, but as well as challenging, especially when it comes to the inclusion, because we're working with a very kind of a specific group. We recognize their historical contribution into waste management, into circular economy, and into recycling, but it's still, it's not all pink. So those are the three integration models that exist from a governance point of view, and then the integration that's happening on different levels. National level, for example, in South Africa, where there was a national policy, more local level at Pune in India, where the direct contract was happening with the municipality. So going back to the general topic of this working group is that when we're talking about implementation and mitigation through waste management, I think it's a quick win for a lot of municipalities, a lot of government to just integrate waste pickers into their model, especially here. So if we imagine we have 34 million waste pickers around the world, and each one contributes into the reduction, if we're taking the number, and the number is just like, it can be validated for, but it's just like an estimate, 950 kg of plastic, kg of CO2 equivalent emission for every ton. I think if we put them all together and we factor them, I think there's already kind of a case there in terms of the mitigation effort that is happening through integration and through the work of waste pickers. Just like to conclude, we know it, we see it, there's data, but still I think we're lacking a little bit of the political will. The political will is not there yet in many places. It is there in some places, but still I think there's an opportunity to increase the cooperation and the mobilization toward improved political will and serious action toward the integration of waste pickers and workers in informal economy from a mitigation, from a climate change and climate justice point of view. And to end, our organization work with various workers, not only workers in informal economy. We work with sectors like street vendors, home-based workers, domestic workers. And if we go back to the topic that was happening yesterday, talking about circular economy and understanding, at least Africa here, we have 85% of our economy is based on informal sector. I think there is a little bit of room of reflection and thinking as well, how those workers can be brought into the mitigation discourse and topic for circular economy, for an inclusive circular economy system in our continent and around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that very interesting overview and the illustrations of how this is playing out in different geographies. I will now open the floor for interventions, examples, or questions from participants. We've projected the questions again for you, the focus here being on governance and policy, and what are some of your best practices, the lessons learned and challenges that you have faced in your region or your country. I know some of these have already been touched on, but we have an opportunity to maybe get more granular or even react to what you've heard from some of your colleagues. Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the icebreaker. Happy to share some perspectives from my country.
Please speak closer to the mic so that people online can hear you.
Sure.
Thank you.
So in Switzerland, we are experiencing with both at the federal level with a good regulatory framework and experiences at the cities level, and I wanted to share on both of these. So Switzerland's federal framework has been strengthened in 2024 by an amendment to the Environmental Protection Act, which enshrines resource conservation and the waste hierarchy, so prioritizing reuse and recycling, that allows the Federal Council to liberalize municipal waste collection to include private actors. And our experience has been that this liberalization and inclusion of private actors has led to supporting multi-level governance, but also innovation in recycling schemes. So I think it would be interesting to hear other examples where you have a federal level regulatory framework and then liberalizing at the municipal level to also get more local level innovations. One example I wanted to share is the city of Zurich. What's interesting is that there was, of course, since we're talking about Switzerland, there was a public vote, and 75% of Zurich's inhabitants confirmed having a target of reaching net zero by 2040 for the city of Zurich. And that includes a target for reducing indirect GHG emissions by 30% per inhabitant by 2040 compared to 1990. So it's interesting to see an example of having a target for indirect GHG emissions, which is an important topic in a country like Switzerland. At the cantonal level as well, Zurich enshrined the circular economy into its constitution, and the city of Zurich became the first Swiss city to launch a citywide circular strategy after signing a Circular Cities declaration. So concretely, what does that look like? So 75% of the city of Zurich's overall GHG emissions are emitted through activities located outside the city boundaries. And so one sector that has been particularly important was looking at the building sector, namely sustainable construction materials, reusing existing components, and recycling concrete. But all these need scaling up. And I think, as we said also yesterday, I think the building sector is also difficult due to the lack of alternatives for primary material. Another example of what the city of Zurich did, which is interesting, is the focus on circularity that goes beyond the classic waste disposal and recycling. So the city put in place sharing opportunities, but also repair advice and services such as warehouses for reusable goods. They also organized an architecture competition for constructing a waste disposal and recycling site from reused building components. And we found that this project was triggering circular design in sustainable construction. So also getting more creatives to think about different types of building has been a positive experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Switzerland, for those two examples. Colombia.
So I will try to address both questions together based on solutions and barriers in Colombia. So strong national policy frameworks, we have already mentioned some of them, like the National Circular Economy Strategy, also the Basura Cero program, and the extended producer responsibility regulations and single-use plastic law. But a decisive factor has been the multi-level governance complementing finance mechanisms also. One notable practice for multi-level governance framework would be the development of the territorial comprehensive climate change management plans. These plans serve as kind of a strategic document or instrument enabling territorial entities and regional environmental authorities also to identify and assess, prioritize, and define adaptation measures, also with greenhouse gas mitigation actions. These kinds of territorial plans provide a territorial perspective on climate change, also taking into account regional specificities, risk profiles, and also their own development priorities. Even when these are not, or its adoption is not formally or administratively binding, the Ministry of Environment has actively promoted its implementation to foster continuity beyond political cycles, and in this way to promote and enhance the capacity of subnational governments in the alignment of their policies with national long-term climate strategies. However, despite these advances, we would like to highlight some important barriers which remain, as was mentioned in the icebreaker. Thank you for that. The formalization of waste pickers has already some barriers in its implementation as being uneven yet, and also with many municipalities, especially small and medium-sized ones, lacking the technical and financial capacity to upgrade and enforce the waste management plans to prepare bankable climate projects. Also, regulatory and tariff frameworks do not yet fully incorporate incentives for biogas capture or organic waste treatment, and data systems remain fragmented until the MRV system becomes fully operational in this sector. And small projects face high transaction costs and limited aggregation mechanisms, which restrict private sector participation in many ways. And finally, interministerial coordination is still a challenge, and cultural barriers persist in the way of the misconception of circular economy, but also in the cultural kind of consumption customs. In short, the main barriers are municipal capacity gaps, incomplete regulatory and tariff signals, fragmented MRV data, and limited financial readiness, and uneven social inclusion. Addressing these will require strong local support, robust MRV, of course, and expanded blended finance and inclusive governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Colombia, for that intervention. We have the UAE.
Thank you, Chair. I'm audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, thank you. So, in the UAE, we have a robust coherent governance, which has been the difference differentiated between the pilot and scalable projects. We align our national policy spin with the emirate level delivery throughout clear mandates, measurable KPIs, and standardized PPP documents that have enabled us to integrate models, high recovery sorting, linked to energy recovery, landfill gas capture at legacy sites, and construction and demolishing recycling feeding public projects. There are three elements that we are capitalizing on. The first is a market-making regulation, extended producer responsibility and green public procurement to secure uptake, phased organic division and landfill standards to secure feedstock, and harmonized technical space to lower transaction cost. Also, we have the second infrastructure. We are building a national methane registry linked to other database from emirate level. We also have a facility control system and also emission monitoring system. So financiers and regulator can trust the outcome and the channel results based on finance. And then we have the capacity where policy and practical operational academy and a central PPP support function. So the municipality can run competitive tenders and plan to perform to best available standards. One example in the UAE that we are capitalizing on when it comes to a strong governance policy, that early this year we have a collaboration with BIA and our Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure, whereby we announced the plan for having the Middle East first commercial scale waste to hydrogen project, which will be first in Sharjah. This aligns with our national hydrogen strategy by transforming waste into fuel cell grade hydrogen, and will be supported by the ministry commits to develop a hydrogen robust economy and achieving the net zero by 2050. This showcased the collaboration between the private sector and the federal government to make sure that everything is facilitated and needed regulation policies are in place. Our next step also when it's come to governance, when it's come to data, we are working on a national MRV protocol aligned with the enhanced transparency framework and accelerate methane abatement at large landfills. Our message is very simple. Governance that align rules, data, and capacity unlocks private investment and delivers fast, credible mitigation in the waste sector and circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, UAE, for that intervention. Are there any more requests to intervene? Kenya, and then South Africa.
Okay, this is Kenya. I would like to address the first question on the policy. I'll start by saying that we have a national policy framework. One is National Sustainable Waste Management Policy 2021. This policy published in February 2021 by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. It aims to protect public health and the environment, as well as drive job and wealth creation. It establishes a comprehensive approach to waste management, emphasizing waste reduction, recycling, and resource recovery. The policy also introduces extended producer responsibility, EPR Regulation 2024, as I said yesterday, holding producers accountable for the lifestyle of their products. We also have a Sustainable Management, Waste Management Act 2022. I touched it yesterday. This act, signed into law on July 7, 2022, provides a legal framework for waste management activities, including waste collection, transportation, and disposal. It emphasizes the need for sustainable waste management practices and introduces the concept of extended producer responsibility, EPR, holding producer accountable for the life cycle of their products. Kenya also have a multilateral governance and stakeholder engagement. The National Environment Management Authority, NEMA. NEMA is the Kenyan government agency responsible for the management of the environment and environmental policy. It coordinates environmental policies and regulations, ensuring that waste management practices align with the national goals. We also have county governments, which are also known as subnational government. The county governments implement waste management policies at the local level, tailoring strategies to the specific needs of their communities. They are responsible for establishing waste management infrastructure, promoting source segregation, and maintaining data on waste management activity. We also have a public-private partnership. Collaborations with government and agencies and private enterprises have led to innovation solutions, such as waste to energy projects and recycling initiatives. Notable examples include the Dora Waste to Energy Power Station and the Kakamega Waste to Energy Plant. I'll go to successful local initiative. I'll talk of one initiative known as Jenge Makers, a startup that recycles plastic waste into durable building blocks, providing an alternative to traditional construction material. We also have EcoPost. The EcoPost efforts have not only contributed to environmental conservation, but have also created sustainable jobs to marginalized communities. Another initiative is the Dora Waste to Energy Power Station, which is a planned 45 megawatts thermal power plant in Nairobi, Kenya. The project aims to convert municipal solid waste into electricity, providing a sustainable solution to waste management and energy generation. I go to challenges and barriers. There is implementation gaps. Despite the existence of policies, there are challenges in translating them into effective action into the ground, on the ground. Infrastructure efficiency is another challenge. Limited infrastructure hampers effective waste collection, segregation, and recycling, particularly in informal settlement. It's also third one, financial constraints. Insufficient funding for waste management projects and circular economy initiatives hinders progress. Number 4, public awareness and education. Low level of public awareness about the benefits of circular economy practices, impaired community participation and behavior change. Regulatory enforcement. Challenges in enforcing existing regulation and policies lead to non-compliance and ineffective waste management practices. In conclusion, Kenya's journey towards a circular economy in the waste sector demonstrates a commitment to sustainability through robust policies, innovative local initiatives, and active stakeholder engagement. However, addressing challenges related to implementation, infrastructure, financing, public awareness, and regulatory enforcement is crucial for realizing the full potential in circular economy practices. I would also request to give my submission on the first forum where we were dealing with capacity. Let me get there. Finance, capacity, and technology. I would like to request to give my submission. How to scale private sector investment, the proven approaches and strategies. Kenya has actively pursued PPPs to develop critical infrastructure. Notable projects include the Konza Technopolis, a technology hub aimed at fostering innovation and attracting global tech investment. Another one is the Tatu City, a private sector-led urban development project. These initiatives demonstrate the government's commitment to creating an enabling environment for private investment. The second one is strategic privatization of state-owned enterprises. The Kenyan government has initiated the privatization of state-owned assets to attract private sector investment. For instance, plans to list the Kenya Pipeline Company on the Nairobi Security Exchange are underway. This move aims to reduce reliance on foreign debt and enhance domestic capital markets. We also have blended finance mechanisms. Kenya has leveraged blended finance to mobilize private capital for development projects by combining public funds with private investment. The country has been able to scale initiatives in sectors like clean energy and technology. We have also support for micro, small, and medium SMEs. Recognizing the importance of MSMEs, Kenya has implemented programs to support their growth. For instance, 4G Capital provides unsecured short-term working capital loans to MSMEs, focusing on underserved population, particularly women entrepreneurship. Then we have investment in green and sustainable ventures. Kenya is positioning itself as a leader in green technology investment. The country has attracted significant investment in clean energy, such as $1 billion geothermal power data center project by Microsoft and G42. Additionally, initiatives like a green economy strategy and implementation plans aim to integrate sustainable into economic development. We also have digital finance inclusion. The widespread adoption of mobile money platforms like M-Pesa has revolutionized financial inclusion in Kenya. Studies have shown that access to M-Pesa lifted a significant number of households out of poverty, demonstrating the potential of digital financial services to stimulate economic activity and attract investment. I continue with the role of data, technology, and capacity building in unlocking mitigation action. That will be my last. On waste mapping, first of all is waste mapping and material flow analysis, MFA. Kenya is integrating material flow analysis into its waste management strategies. For instance, a study on fruit, vegetable, and nut waste in Kenya utilized MFA to assess resource recovery potential, highlighting the importance of data-driven approaches in waste management. We also have number 2 is digital traceability and payments. Digital solutions are being employed to enhance waste management processes. For example, the Takataka project in Kenya integrate digital tools to manage waste collection and recycling, aiming to streamline operations and improve efficiency. Additionally, the implementation of QR code-based recyclable waste monitoring system demonstrates the adoption of digital traceability in waste management. Number 3, monitoring, reporting, and verification is my last, MVR. Kenya has developed a MRV tool to facilitate climate change reporting, enabling accurate measurement and verification of greenhouse gas reductions. This tool supports the country's participation in carbon markets and align with international climate commitments, the NDC. Thank you so much, and those are my submissions.
Thank you, Kenya, for that very comprehensive presentation. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 interventions. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. Actually 9, but 1 more there. So I will 10. So over to South Africa.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, and thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Maybe just I'll keep it brief since we need a bit of time for the other interventions. Maybe just to lift and highlight some of the aspects I mentioned yesterday because it relates to this topic as well. Maybe just to emphasize once again that for us, as I said, the waste sector is the lowest emitting sector. It contributes about 4%. So we take a more holistic and integrated approach to the issue of waste management, and we look at it more in the context of sustainable development, job creation, poverty eradication, and also human and environmental health, with mitigation being more of a co-benefit. As I mentioned yesterday, we do have national legislation. We have the National Environmental Management Waste Act. And in 2020, we adopted a national waste management strategy, which is legislated by that act. It has 8 goals, but more importantly, the goals that relate to governance one of the goals is that we need to establish effective effective compliance with an enforcement of our Waste Act. So that's one of the important goals, and also to ensure that we do sound budgeting and financial management for waste services. But as we know, in most of developing countries, this is a very under-resourced sector with a lot of potential. I did also mention some of the challenges, but the one that relates more to this is that we have a big challenge with policy and regulatory environment that does not actively promote waste management hierarchy, but the national waste management strategy is geared in such a way to address that. And as I mentioned, we also have a national waste flagship project. So this will help assist us in waste diversion, but also in emissions reductions. But that's, as I mentioned, that's sort of a co-benefit. And then we've also set up a waste management bureau to assist with all these goals and challenges. Yeah, that's just my brief intervention. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, South Africa. Australia, you're up next.
Thank you very much. So I think one of the key strategies in Australia that I've heard in a lot of different interventions is strong national planning. And this is particularly powerful if it's based on science, robust consultation, and alignment with subnational plans and policies and other national plans like development plans. These can help to set direction, provide solid foundations for change, and establish in-depth consideration of national circumstances and long-term strategic direction. So I've already given a number of examples in Australia's context in other interventions, so I'll leave that there. Second important tool would be legislation. In Australia, we have the Recycling and Waste Reduction Act, and this is the main piece of national legislation that supports action on circular economy, and it's currently under review. Another example is sustainable procurement policies. So in Australia, we have the environmentally sustainable procurement policy, which leverages the federal government's spending power to drive demand for environmentally sustainable goods and services, including goods with recycled materials. Something else to touch on, which is another common thread that I've heard in a lot of different interventions, is the importance of multi-level governance. And one of the big challenges that we have is the lack of harmonisation between different areas in waste policy in Australia. So like a lot of countries, the responsibility for waste policy is split across different levels of government in Australia. We are a federated system. The waste and resource recovery policy and regulation mainly sits at the state and territory government level. And then the delivery of waste management services is the responsibility of local governments. And then for the federal government, of course, there's national planning and policies, international cooperation and obligations, trade policy, and then efforts to harmonise across different states and territories. And one of the big challenges we have is that differences in policies and regulations of waste management really hinder effective action. So different states, territories, and even local governments can have very different requirements for waste disposal and management. So an example of this is curbside collection, where different states and territories have differences in the types and number of bins they provide and lid colour and what you can put in those bins. So that becomes very confusing and is particularly challenging for national businesses who operate in a number of different jurisdictions where they have to adapt to very different requirements. So there's obviously a role for federal governments to try and harmonise this and find national and common approaches where it makes sense. And some of the ways we do this in Australia, so one important tool is what we call the Australian Environment Ministers Meeting, which is where we bring all the different environment ministers at both the federal level and the state and territory level together to work on the harmonisation of waste policy. So for example, in December 2024, all the environment ministers agreed to implement a national curbside collection roadmap to harmonise curbside collection in Australia. And then, of course, I've mentioned this already, but another really important harmonisation tool are the national frameworks and roadmaps and strategic plans. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Australia. Now over to China.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. In terms of the national policy and multi-governance, China would like to share 2 points. The first, China has embedded waste control and circular economy measures within its carbon peaking and carbon neutrality policy architecture. The 2030 Carbon Peaking Action Plan treats the waste control and circular economy measures as integral to emission reduction efforts. From the 2012 to 2021, in this decade, 3 national level circular economy development plans were issued, and according to the in-complement data, a total of 39 or more provincial level circular economy development plans were issued. And the second point is China has formulated and implemented the circular economy promotion law of the People's Republic of China. In recent years, China has continuously improved its regular system for developing a circular economy and has basically formed a legal system that connects the circular economy promotion law and related laws, administrative regulations, departmental rules, and local regulations providing the legal guarantee for the development of a circular economy. On August 29 of 2008, China passed the Circular Economy Promotion Law of the People's Republic of China, which was officially implemented in 2009. It is the first law in China aimed at improving resource utilization efficiency. And also, we would introduce one successful case. In the decade of the 2012 to 2021, the development of circular economy has continued to be deepened, providing strong support for green and low-carbon transformation of the industries and promoting the green transformation of agriculture, industry, construction, transportation, and industrial parks. On the one hand, over the past decade, the field of waste recycling in China has continuously expanded, covering almost every aspect from the traditional industry and agriculture waste to retired power batteries, PV modules, and wind turbines, blades, and other new energy components. On the other hand, the core indicators of the circular transformation of industry parks have been reflected the creation of demonstration pilot projects, such as the Ecology Industry Park and Green Parks, and the policy implemented by various component departments have been achieved the synergies efficiently, effectively driving the green and low-carbon transition of the industrial parks. Regarding the challenges and barriers, I would like to share 2 points of China's domestic barriers and 2 regional and global barriers. The first is the mandatory nature of law and regulations in the field of resource conservation, intensive and circular utilization is limited. The current the circular economy promotion law mainly encourage the guides source reduction and resources recycling. It's on the lack of the mandatory of legal requirements and key institutional measures. At the same time, some product equipment lacks the mandatory in energy consumption limit standards, and emerging industry waste lacks the relevant recycling standards. The second barrier is the policy support system still needs to be improved. First, there is an insufficient capital investment, and the government is main source of the finance with the low participation of private capital. And second, the tax incentive and use and other security policy have not been fully implemented. And thirdly, the imperfect pricing mechanism. The third barrier is the global barrier and regional barrier, that is the unilateral measures. This would be the common barriers and challenge for the whole world. Especially for developing countries, unilateral trade measures have increased the cost of low-carbon technology and products, and unilateral measures are designed to put undue burdens on developing countries, penalize their industries, and impede their growth. This has both the direct and the indirect impact on the people in the developing countries, including on the workers, women, children, local community, and among others. We need a supportive and proactive multilateral approach for enlarging the international cooperation, and we also want to emphasize this point shall be reflected in the annual report. And the fourth barrier would also be the regional and global barrier, that is the financial support. Just as several speakers this morning and also yesterday have already mentioned, this financial support from developed countries to developing countries is obviously insufficient, especially from the public sector. It will be the great barriers for developing countries to take climate actions and to enhancing the mitigation ambition and the implementation. We strongly urge the developed countries to fulfill their obligations under the Convention and the Paris Agreement. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, China. I now have Japan, followed by the EU, UAE, Armenia, Jordan, Norway, Liberia, and Korea. So Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I'm actually in the Addis Ababa, but unfortunately, I'm not feeling very good this morning. So I participate online to make an intervention. Thank you for this opportunity and your understanding. I'd like to share two practices in multi-level governance approach and one recent challenge in waste sector. First, as I mentioned yesterday, Japan revised the fundamental plan for sound material cycle society last year, making the circular economy as a national strategy. Accordingly, we have established the Resource Circulation Municipalities Forum, involving over 1,700 all municipalities nationwide, who is responsible for the municipal solid waste disposal. With the first meeting scheduled for next week in Osaka, and this forum will facilitate the sharing of the advanced case studies and matchmaking between local governments, companies, and startup companies. It aims to achieve a circular economy at the local level, solve regional challenges, and to contribute to the regional economic revitalization, as well as climate change mitigation. Actually, the regional revitalization is the current administration's top priority. We will work together with stakeholders, among others municipalities, to align our understanding that transitioning to a circular economy contribute to the regional revitalization and climate change mitigation. Secondly, I'd like to explain a specific item of used disposal diaper recycling. In Japan, the aging population is expected to lead an increase in the use of disposable diaper, not for the children. Large amount will be the aging person, older person, with their share of municipality waste project to rise from 5.3 to 5.7 in 2020 to 7.1 by 2030, which means it will be a serious issue in the near future. Therefore, our Ministry of the Environment works with local governments and companies to expand effort to recycle used waste disposable diaper. In particular, the Ministry supports the information sharing with local governments and matches local government with disposable diaper manufacturers and recycling operators to facilitate the expansion of the recycling initiatives.
Thank you very much, Japan, and I hope you will feel better soon. The European Union.
Sorry, it was the wrong one. Thank you so much. Let me start by referring to the last intervention on unilateral measures, especially in the context of climate action policies, and agree we have to implement the Paris Agreement comprehensively and together. And this refers to mainly nationally determined action to achieve this multilateral goal together. And this means mostly national policies and measures, including the energy transitioning away from fossil fuels and adaptation policies to adapt to the impacts of climate change. And so we, in this context, don't see this eligible framed as unilateral measures. It applies for all countries and for all policies. And we've been openly discussing positive and negative impacts of policies in this regard. in the form for response measures, and we are happy to continue to do this continuously. But with that, let me come to the best practices and solutions. We mentioned in our interventions in the last breakout session, the Circular Economy Action Plan as the main building block in the European Green Deal for sustainable growth to address entire life cycle of products, to keep resources in the system for as long as possible. This focuses especially on high impact sectors, including electronics, communication technologies, batteries, vehicles, packaging, textiles, plastics, so very comprehensively, including policies for the eco-design, rights to repair, to ensure less waste. Monitoring in this is essential, especially monitoring of the impacts of the regulations, to update them and to make them fit for purpose in the long run. These regulations include, and I'm trying to be brief because some of them have already been mentioned, the Landfill Directive, which aims for 90% reduction of landfill waste, similar to what Saudi Arabia has mentioned in the other breakout session, by 2035. It has a specific target to eliminate biodegradable waste in landfills, and it doesn't see landfill gas as a solution. And we have the Waste Framework Directive that bans the incineration of separately collected waste and includes an obligation to collect all recyclable waste separately so that we decrease the amount of waste in the long run. And the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive requires secondary and tertiary treatment to reduce methane emissions by removing nutrients, and we're aiming to update it to greening the energy use in these treatment plants. And there's extended producer responsibility policies, including fees to support the investment in recycling capacities. I also mentioned that before, and policies regarding life cycle of new buildings that I mentioned in the last breakout session extensively, as well as eco-design regulations for products. On the challenges, it is essential to address all actors on all levels, including also local governments, to address this main challenge and to implement at the regional level, and to address social behavioral patterns, as well as planning and action of small and medium enterprises. We created the EU Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, a dialogue platform, which is aiming to better monitor and find out about necessary improvements in our regulations. And internationally, I would also like to highlight the joint EU and China roadmap for circular economy that was last agreed of further cooperation in 2024. Looking forward to this cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. We now have Armenia.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I would like to highlight that the waste sector in Armenia has historically faced significant challenges: fragmented infrastructure, insufficient data, limited community engagement, and low recycling rates. However, in recent years, a combination of data technologies and capacity building initiatives has begun to transform the sector, laying the groundwork for impactful climate mitigation actions. Effective climate mitigation begins with data. In Armenia, the experience of the country shows that robust data systems and capacity building programs are not just supportive tools, they are central enablers of climate mitigation in the waste sector. By investing in mapping, analytics, education, and institutional training, Armenia has begun shifting from reactive waste management to proactive, data-driven, and inclusive climate action. While challenges remain, particularly around policy adoption and infrastructure scale-up, the foundation laid by these initiatives offer a replicable model for other developing countries seeking to unlock mitigation in the waste sector. Just a minute. As for the best practices and actionable solutions in terms of national policy and governance approaches, this year my country adopted a new waste management system strategy, which is for 2025-2032 implementation period. The strategy envisages the implementation of measures and investment programs for the deployment of an integrated and sustainable waste collection system in all settlements of the country. To implement the investment program envisaged by the strategy, the government actively exploring different financial options, both public and private. Also, the government approved the green taxonomy, which was developed with the support of World Bank. The approval of the green taxonomy is an important step for the deployment of the classification system of green, transitional and enabling programs and types of activities in the Republic of Armenia. Along with other NDC sectors, the taxonomy prioritizes investment with mitigation co-benefits in the waste sector, including through circular economy approaches. Recently, the Ministry of Environment resecured the readiness program to address the regulatory and capacity gaps pertaining to sustainable management of e-waste generating from the growing number of electric vehicles and capacity of solar energy. The program aims to establish an enabling investment framework for sustainable climate action in the energy and transport sectors, two critical sectors of NDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. And now we have Jordan.
Thanks, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, everyone. And thanks for this opportunity to present the experience of Hashemian Kingdom of Jordan in advancing policy and governance approach in wastewater treatment and circular economy and promoting the transition to circular economy. Regarding to the question one, Jordan has made important strides in establishing a coherent national policy and governance framework to enable more effective mitigation in waste sector. The National Solid Waste Management Strategy 2050-2034 and the Waste Management Framework Law of 2020 and the Green Growth Plan provide a clear national direction towards reducing reliance on landfilling and promoting recycling, recovery, and waste-to-energy solution. These frameworks are reinforced through Jordan's updated NDCs 2021, which commits to 31% emission reduction by 2030, and its participation in the global methane pledge, receiving technical support from a lot of international institutions like Climate and Clean Air Coalition, CCAC, to accelerate methane reduction in line with national targets. At the multi-level governance level, a Greater Amman municipality, GAM, has been at the forefront of operational innovation, introduction digital systems to improve collection efficiency, reduce emissions, and expand recycling and source separation initiatives. Key achievements include Al-Ghabawi landfill, gas-to-energy product, and registered at CDM, which captures methane for electricity generation. The ongoing development of a new waste-to-energy facility under the public-private partnership. Another example, the Samra wastewater treatment plant, which treats nearly 70% of the country's wastewater while generating most of its energy needs from biogas and hydropower, demonstrate how local actors and private stakeholders can effectively complement national policy. Conclusion of all of these practices highlight Jordan's progress in advancing integrated multi-level governance approach for stronger circular economy and climate responsive waste sector. Regarding to the question two, at the same time, Jordan faces several challenges in developing and implementing coherent governance framework that can fully unlock the mitigation potential of waste sector. Landfilling remains the predominant practice and recycling market are underdeveloped, requiring significant investment in infrastructure, data system, and institutional capacity. While policy framework are in place, institutional overlap and coordination gaps between national and municipal authorities often slow implementation. Public partnership in waste separation remains modest, limiting the effectiveness of circular economy initiatives. Another challenge is financing is another major barrier. Large-scale projects such as waste-to-energy facility, methane capture system, and recycling infrastructure required innovation funding mechanism, long-term sustainability models, and greater international support. Rapid urbanization and population growth continue to increase pressure on existing system and natural resources, many of which require modernization. Addressing these barriers will depend on mobilizing international climate finance, strengthening multi-stakeholder partnership, and enhancing governance mechanism to ensure measurable progress towards circular and climate resilience with sector in Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordan. We now have Norway.
Thank you. Perfect. I would like to start to thank the co-chair and all participants here for fruitful discussions. Successful waste and circular economy policies and governments may consist of various measures that incentivize finance, technology, capacity tailored to local circumstances. But important, international, national, and local strategies and measures needs to work together. Norwegian national waste and circular economy policies include a range of measures, including regulations, carbon pricing, grants, producer responsibility schemes, and information. And my intervention on national examples and practices on governments and policy approaches will therefore answer some of the questions related to the earlier session. But first, in terms of governance and policies for waste, legislations are important, as mentioned by Australia and others today and yesterday. Over 20 years ago, Norway prohibited landfilling of organic waste, expanded in 2009 to cover all biodegradable waste, which reduced emissions. Norwegian waste legislation mandates separation of municipal waste, important for increased recycled rates. But legislation can also support food loss. A new Food Loss Act passed by the Norwegian Parliament in June this year requires all food businesses to implement measures to prevent and reduce food waste. Regarding financing policies, Norway highlights two relevant examples in our submission prior to this dialogue, which are available on the submission portal. And first is the extended producer responsibility scheme, mentioned by many times during our dialogues. These schemes are implemented for several product groups in Norway and are important for financing waste collection and recycling infrastructure. And second, carbon pricing on waste incineration, which is an instrument within Norwegian waste policy that incentivizes efficient resource utilization and low emissions. But it also requires information and will build MRV capacity. Technology solutions are important, such as landfill gas capture system. All landfills containing biodegradable waste in Norway are required to have system for capturing landfill gas, which is then flared if not used for energy recovery. But we also need new technology, carbon capture and storage, for example, and waste incineration plant in Oslo is part of the Norwegian Longship project, which is establishing a full value chain for carbon capture and storage. But lastly, let me again emphasize the importance of regional and international cooperation. Norway participates in international cooperation agreements related to waste and circular economy, including as part of the EEA agreement with EU, the Montreal Protocol, the Climate Clean Air Coalition, the Global Methane Pledge, and such cooperation is crucial for effective management and to maintain high ambitions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norway. We'll move straight on to Liberia.
Madam Co-Chair, thank you for facilitating these discussions. I think it has been really very good discussion. My name is Grace. I'm from Liberia. This is my very first time taking the floor. I've listened to many speakers, and some of them really share really good experiences in terms of barriers and challenges faced in their countries. And we side with most of them. South Africa and a few others really spoke very well of their challenges. So our country also is faced with serious challenge in terms of waste management. In fact, our country, the second highest emitting sector is waste, second to energy. But recently, we have developed the solid waste management policy, but the policy has not been fully integrated and also, implemented, which leads to, inconsistencies and also inefficiencies in terms of implementations. I've also noticed that the government agencies and institutions that are responsible for the implementations of waste initiatives in our country have some level of duplications of functions, and that they are overlapping of their mandates. And these issues are currently also impacting the direct implementations of policies of our country. And I've also noticed that like many speakers who have previously spoke about limitations of capacity, and there is also limitations of administrative functions in terms of implementations and the enforcement abilities of these policies that have been developed in our countries have been lacking. Specifically in our case, we have not managed to have a direct institutions who will lead on the implementation efforts of our solid waste management procedures in our country. Additionally, there are lack of a comprehensive and a clear and enforceable plans or strategy of the policy that have been developed, which leads to a poor compliance and also sustainability of waste initiatives. Finally, there is a huge gap in terms of data collections as well as management, which impels evidence-based policies making and as well as monitoring of progress for the implementations of the solid or waste management plans and policies of our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liberia. We'll now go online to the Republic of Korea. So if you do Japan, continue.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So, due to the time constraints, I will try to keep my intervention brief. And while we have been engaging constructively with the municipalities, I will focus on our legal and institutional arrangements at the national level. So, Korea has developed and implemented comprehensive plans and strategies for the circular economy, carbon neutrality, and the transition to the plastic-free society across the entire life cycle. So these plans are underpinned by the robust legal frameworks, the need for effective waste management, and the promotion of circular economy approach has been duly recognized. The significance of the circular economy is emphasized in our circular economy law as well as our climate neutrality law. We have also set annual waste sector greenhouse gas emissions reduction target through 2030 and for 2050 domestically. One of the implementation indicators, the resource recycling rate has been exceeded in the last 2 years. Also, in response to the growing focus on plastic management, the Republic of Korea will announce the de-plastic roadmap for circular economy by the end of this year. In the context of the significant energy transition, particularly the electrification of the transport sector and the expansion of renewable energy, it is anticipated that substantial quantities of waste batteries will be produced. To respond to this situation, Korea will announced May this year a better circularity promotion plan. Last but not least, it is essential to encourage participation and raise awareness among consumers who can be more challenging to change their behaviors. So we need to do this by offering, as few other colleagues mentioned, information sharing is very important. And we have this platform that delivers information with incentives. So Korea has what we call the Resource Recycling Action Plan, which plays a crucial role in strengthening public awareness and participation. It shares detailed information on recycling, correct recycling methods, best practices from individuals, policies and measures with and they do this, share the information with all stakeholders. That includes government, local authorities, businesses, individuals, and non-governmental organizations. So it also promotes public participation across all sectors in fun, interesting ways, like contests with small but effective rewards, like coffee coupons. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Korea. I now have 4 more interventions, and I just want to be a bit conscious of time since the other group is on their way over for us to close the plenary. So please try to keep your comments a little bit brief. Peru, you're on next.
Thank you, Chair. Peru would like to share its best practice on governance and policy for the waste sector with engagement of regional and local government actors, as well as other stakeholders. First, Peru has a strong climate change law, where the responsibilities and functions of national and subnational governments are clearly defined. Likewise, our national climate change policy to 2050 incorporates a circular economy approach to achieve zero CO2 emissions. In addition, we have guidelines for the updating and formulation of adaptation and mitigation measures, which specifies the information each measure must include. These guidelines include spaces for participation and involvement of non-state actors. In these ways, Peru ensures that adaptation and mitigation measures presented by national sectors incorporate the vision, the contribution of subnational actors. Currently, we are updating 10 mitigation measures in the waste sector, including waste management and water treatment, following the mentioned guidelines and incorporated the circular economy approach. Both of these sectors has their own circular economy roadmap to 2030. Peru also is implementing the law on solid waste management, which promotes sustainability across the entire waste cycle, from reduction, recovery, valorization, to improve final disposal in landfills with biogas capture and use. And in the sanitation sector, 50 water and sanitation service providers across the country are required to submit climate change mitigation and adaptation plans. Second, Peru has a high-level climate change commission composed of 18 ministers, which makes key decisions to promote resilience and low-carbon development. This high-level commission approves NDC updates, as well as new mitigation and adaptation measures. Third, Peru has a National Climate Change Commission in which both state and non-state actors participate. These include academia, private sector, indigenous people, regional and local governments, among other stakeholders. This commission monitors, tracks the implementation of the NDC and reviews climate change-related proposals and projects. Four, Peru has a space for outreach, engagement, and participation of state and non-state actors called Dialoguemos. This space allows us to hear all voices and improve climate change management. Regarding the challenges and barriers in the waste sector, These include financing and technology deployment, capacity building to operate new technologies in landfills and water treatment plants. The need for studies and data included adaptation and mitigation scenarios and projections, and identification of incentives to increase private sector engagement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Peru. Now I give the floor to Grenada.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. So, my apologies. Just trying to get exactly. Madam Co-Chair, can you go on to another party, please, and I would come back.
Okay, so unfortunately, because of the poor internet, intervention was truncated. So I'll invite Japan to complete his intervention. So Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, again. And I just skipped the diet of recycling as I can be found in our submission. Then finally, I just want to share with you a recent topic of our challenge regarding to the photovoltaic panel recycling. In Japan, EPR has been introduced end-of-life vehicles, home appliances, and packaging waste. The disposal of the photovoltaic is expected to. Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Sorry. Okay. Expect to increase sharp in 2030s in order to enhance renewable energy deployment as a climate change mitigation measures or policies. A whole of life approach is crucial. So I mean that waste issue needs to be taken into consideration. We have concluded that through a thorough discussion among various stakeholders to make legal framework, but we now are being re-examined from a legal perspective. The reason are that given the current significant cost differences between landfill disposal and recycling of photovoltaic panels, and unlike other products such as ELB and home appliances, we concluded that it is difficult to, at this stage, provide a reasonable justification for mandating recycling solely for PV panel, both new and existing, by requiring manufacturers and others to bear these cost differences. Thank you again, and see you in person this evening.
Thank you very much, Japan. And our last intervention will be from the UAE.
Hello, Madam Chair. We already delivered our intervention previously.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think with that we have reached the end. Oh, sorry, Grenada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Grenada accepts the role that, excuse me, waste speakers can play in waste management from a recycling and waste reduction point of view. In terms of the waste speakers, they started on their own and were usually chased away from the landfill. Now, though, there are efforts attempting to integrate them differently. So approximately 20 waste speakers do exist in our national landfill. It is dominated by females, and currently they remove glass bottles and metals, which has an export value, but there is no national mechanism to facilitate buying back. So such waste are usually harvested and exported. They do not engage in the harvesting of plastics or paper materials, as there is no facility to facilitate washing and this is in the context of quality control requirements. There is no legal framework for them to operate under, so here too some appropriate draft template-like plug-and-play toolkit could be helpful. Nevertheless, they are usually engaged by the National Waste Management Authority in projects that the authority undertakes, and they are paid for such engagement. So recently they were engaged in a waste characterization initiative. In terms of gaps they face, there is a dire need to facilitate training and the availability and use of fit-for-purpose personal protective equipment and social protections. This also in the context of the proliferation of the just transition technology related waste, through the opportunities of the market for used EVs and hybrids, for example, to be imported into the country as newer, more advanced technologies get incorporated in the source markets. So lithium-ion batteries and other electronic waste hazardous materials can be part of the waste streams, or even the solar PV panels, which gets destroyed by the hurricanes, can be a problem. And recently, there was a decimation of a solar PV plant facility that was being set up it was destroyed by Hurricane Beryl. And thus, the heavy metal waste and hazardous substances such as cadmium, lead, copper, silver, respectively, for example, these are some of the issues that have to be contend with because it is eventually discarded at the landfill, and wherein the risk, basically potentially the risk is then increased. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you very much, Grenada, and apologies that I was about to close the list. It was oversight on my side. At this point, we've come to the end of the very rich range of interventions, and I would like to now invite my co-chair who's joined me so that we can wrap up and summarize the breakout group.
Good afternoon, all colleagues. Thank you very much for your very rich and creative discussion under the global dialogue over the course of the last day and a half. And we will provide very short reflections on what we heard. And I will ask Angela to make the report back. Before that, maybe I will very briefly report to Angela what I have heard. we will go to meeting room 1, the one we had yesterday, the biggest one. Thank you.